Welcome to episode 1 of the Circle of Experts, where we feature top bosses, CEOs, entrepreneurs, business owners as they all share deep secrets for business success. And I'm so humbled today because I have with me Mr. Deryck Jones as our first guest. Now, Mr. Jones has a solid background in software engineering and information systems spanning over 40 years. He has pioneered creative designs of software, GPS, robotics, and lasers that help transform the construction, agriculture, engineering, mining, dredging, and survey industries. Mr. Jones has launched several successful businesses and has had customers like Sony Music, Sony Corporation, Latin America, CANON, and more. He has also been the recipient of the Premier 100 IT Leader Award. He has a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Technology and Manufacturing and a Master of Science in Technology and Digital Communications. Mr. Jones is also a Marine veteran. I see him as a true leader in the industry. So I want to say today a special welcome to you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes,
I feel honored going first.
Yes, it is an honor indeed, and an honor for you and for us. So I want to say to you, our new viewers, if you're new to this channel, please do subscribe because we do intend to provide you with a guest expert interview every week where you get more deep secrets to help you succeed at your businesses. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Tranquille, the director, founder of MT Training Enterprises Limited. Let's start by asking you to tell us a little more about how you got started.
Well, goodness, when I first got out of the Marines, I was disabled coming out of the Marines, and initially I had taken several different jobs, mostly in technology, and it was back in the 80s, right when PCs were beginning to emerge on the marketplace, and businesses were just becoming aware of a little software called Lotus 123, which was a spreadsheet product. And so my first entrepreneurial venture was to actually write a piece of software on Lotus 123 to do something which was called calculating haul rates. In other words, in the heavy construction business, one of the big costs is the movement of dirt when you're doing a project, whether you're taking dirt out or moving dirt in. Mm-hmm. It's those hauls. And so I copyrighted a piece of software to do those calculations and then sold that in the construction industry up and down the coast of Southern California. And as I was doing that, I ended up landing what I would refer to as my first mentor. It was a gentleman that had written a complete civil engineering platform on a mainframe.
Wow.
For some of the biggest civil engineering firms in the world. And he saw an opportunity, as did I, to port a portion of his software to a PC environment, which we did, and it was called Civil Image Systems. And we sold it to the biggest construction firms and civil engineering firms, again, throughout Southern California. So most of Southern California was designed using our product. Everything from the Fresno Dam was built using our product, all the way down to Southern California, Yorba Linda, that whole area was built and designed using our software, which ultimately led to my being recruited by, at the time, what was the gorilla in the construction instrument space, a company called Spectra Physics. Mm-hmm. Spectra Physics, the founder, had invented the original pipe laser, and which sits at the Smithsonian Institute, by the way. And what they were trying to do was they were trying to move from being a manufacturing company over to being a software company, because they realized the significant efficiencies they could gain by mm-hmm. doing that. Mm-hmm. The problem was, the first time they tried it, they brought in a software engineer from NCR, and he had never worked in the construction industry, and it didn't work, and they were mm-hmm. losing money because of it. So when I was hired, I was literally given 1 year to come in and turn that around. And if I did, I'd have a career. And if I didn't, well, I'd have to find somewhere else to work.
Right.
And sure enough, at the end of the year, we turned it all around. And by 1997, I led an international team that built the world's first fully autonomous robotic machine control system for heavy construction. We launched 25 commercial software products. We designed the world's first what's called robotic survey instrument. It's called a total station. And that went all the way up until 2000. And throughout that time period, I got exposed to everything. I got exposed because I was the youngest vice president in that company's history.
Wow.
And that led to a number of things. We, because of our being in the laser business, we were initially acquired by Ciba-Geigy, which is a pharmaceutical monster. They were after the medical laser division that we had. We ended up being sold to Nobel Industries in Sweden. We got used in a land deal in Sweden, which resulted in our being wholly owned by the Swedish government. Fidelity Mutual came in at the last minute, bought up all the assets, and then sold it to a company called Thermo Electron, which was a $3.1 billion MIT spin-out. And so going through all that, I got exposed to just amazing, business practices and experiences that, a lot of people I don't think get the opportunity to get exposed to. And so then in 2000, for a variety of reasons, corporate politics being one, I ended up being recruited by a British PR firm based in London,
Right.
a group now called Next 15 Communications Group. They own one of their brands is a company called Text 100 International, which is still around. And so I was hired to come in and design a knowledge management solution to help them solve the problem of constantly reinventing things over and over again every time they would roll out a brand. And so by 2002, that's when I was named as one of the top 100 CIOs in the US based on that work.
Congratulations. Yeah.
But also 9/11 had happened, and right after 9/11, the budget dried up, and I took a look at things, and I decided, it was time to go back to being an entrepreneur. And so I kind of returned to my entrepreneurial roots. And the first company I had was a company in Las Vegas called E-International Group, and it was a financial services company. We had several different brands that we operated under. And then I ended up moving to Boston. And when I got to Boston, initially I worked for a local company, and then I started up my own company in 2007. It was a company called On Demand Communications Group. And this was a company that really kind of combined all of my skills. It was IT managed services for companies. It was software development services for companies. And it was telecommunications work for companies. And one of the first major contracts I landed was Sony Music in New York City. And that just kind of exploded. Everything just went crazy from there. And then, of course, 2008 rolled around, and we experienced the financial crisis. And of course, one of the secrets I'll reveal to people is cash flow is king. If you haven't learned that by now, you better learn it. And so because of the financial crisis, we had grown to 23 employees in 3 years. And cash flow was becoming a little bit tight because our average payroll was on the order of about $85,000 a year. And so I reached out to a friend of mine who was, he had been a partner with me at International. And he's also a very well-known, respected technologist. In fact, he invented the original paging system back in the early 70s. And it just so happened at that time, he was putting together literally a $1 billion deal to attempt a redesign of the internet. And basically his plan was to buy up all these assets from dark fiber to data centers and so on. And to fund that operation, he had gotten investors throughout Europe to put money up for this. And sadly, I don't know if you remember the time period, but at that time, the Greek finance minister had come out and declared that he was going to default on his loans to the EU.
Yeah.
And when that happened, the investors retracted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was stuck at a position where, do I go back to my company? I'd hired an interim CEO. Do I go back, let him go, restructure, do some layoffs and continue forward? Or do I wait for another investor to come in? And Mark convinced me to wait. I did. Sadly, it turned out that investor was a front man for an organized crime group. Basically, they were laundering about $500 million in assets. And the end result was I lost the business. We lost about $1.5 million personally, and it was just a nightmare. And so rather than just folding and giving up at that point, I took assets that I had and moved it over to a new company called Dataforce, which I created as a virtual software company, and we were partnered with Salesforce. I had developed an event management system that we sold to CANON Professional. And we were getting ready to come out with our second software product when the legal departments from Salesforce came to us and said, well, we're concerned about your brand.
Yes.
Dataforce is in conflict with Salesforce. And so then I was stuck in a position 2 years in. Do I fight them over a branding issue, or what do I do? And at that point, between the stress from everything that happened before, my disability and the stress of that situation, I folded and I just said, you know what? I'm done. I'm too old. I'm too tired. I'm going to just sit on my couch. And of course, I sat on my couch for a few months, and my absolutely beautiful and amazing wife kind of kept gently nudging me towards the computer, saying, you have so much talent, you need to get back on the computer and find something to do. And so I did. Exactly. And so when I got back onto the computer, I discovered this thing that people were calling digital marketing. And of course, I had done marketing my entire life, marketing and engineering. And so I thought, well, I can do that. And so, and I also thought, I have tremendous credibility. I'll bring that credibility into this, and it will help me get started. Unfortunately, I discovered about 6 or 7 months into it that credibility didn't carry over, that it had no meaning in the digital marketing world, that I had to really start all over again.
All over again, yes.
Yeah. And so I did. I began to do that. And so one of the first things opportunities I kind of landed was working with a marketer that'd been in the space for about 18 years. And what I did is I negotiated access to all of his software in exchange for training all of his agency license holders. He had about 300 agency license holders. So I spent literally a couple of years coaching and teaching his agency license holders while I was experimenting with different aspects of the digital marketing space. And that ultimately led to my introduction to another marketer, another opportunity that didn't, it started out looking really good, and it didn't quite go the way I wanted. And so I ended up starting something completely new. And basically, it was born out of things that I discovered about the digital marketing world. Things like shiny object syndrome, and things like the length of time people coming into the business take to really learn and understand what it takes to launch a business, whether it's affiliate marketing or whatever. And so I wanted to do something about it. And so I started a company called E International Group, and it's called Engage Technologies Business Consortium. For short, basically it's EDBC Online, and it's an incubator for marketers. And so the whole idea behind it is for new people coming in, or for marketers that have been in the space that are struggling and have never achieved revenue. Here's an opportunity to get technology that we vetted, that we know works, where we know the developers, we know the owners of the companies, and so on. Resources, both physical as well as human resources, in terms of copywriters, graphic artists, virtual assistants, technical support, training, a marketplace where they can host their services, and so on. So basically, it's all inclusive, all in one. And ultimately, once we're fully operational in business, It'll be $49 a month. But for the next couple of months, we're going to be offering it for $29 a month for anybody coming in. There are some upsells in, once you come into it. I mean, for example, there are certain technologies that we have pretty much aligned with, that we know works and that we all use. So there are some costs for those, but what we've managed to do is be able to be in a position to be able to offer them at half price for members of the consortium. And so that's what we're doing now. And we're getting ready to launch. So the timing of this interview is absolutely perfect because it aligns with our launch. So we're pretty pleased by that.
That sounds exciting. And I definitely wanted to say some more before we close this program.
Sure.
And, I'm really amazed at your background, and you seem to so fearlessly to embark on new businesses. And what I want to ask you to share with our viewers is, how come you so fearlessly embarked on a new business? What were some of the things that you had to overcome, whether it's within your own mind or certain challenges? What were some of the things you had to overcome in order for you actually to get it off the ground? Because many people get the idea, but not many people actually implement. And what you've done is you've gotten those ideas and you took action and you've implemented and you've become successful. So share with our viewers, what were some of the things that you had to overcome in order to embark on those ideas and actually put it into action?
Sure. Well, first thing, one of the first big shocks that you have as an entrepreneur is that, oh my gosh, I've got to do everything.
Yeah.
That's what most people kind of, confront the reality that, oh my gosh, I got to do the accounting. I've got to do the, figure out how to do all the operational work. I've got to figure out, what my processes and systems are going to be.
Right.
And so, that's kind of the first shock. And then the second shock is, this whole concept of cash flow. What's that all about? I mean,
Right.
how do I handle that? How do I manage it? And of course, you're trying to learn all this while at the same time you're trying to develop your product or service. You're trying to market your product or service. You're trying to figure out how to sell the silly thing. And so, one of the first things, and I learned this with probably more than any other company with On-Demand Communications Group, because it grew so fast that we went through phases of definitive change. For example, when we first started, we were literally working out of my home, and I had brought 220 power into a one room, turned it into a data center, and turned our dining room into our conference room, and the bedrooms into offices, and that all worked until a customer figured out. They actually looked us up on Google and figured out we were in a residential community. And it was at that point I turned to a member of my team. I said, you know what? I think it's time that we got office space. And so we did. We moved out to like AAA office space. I think, one of the things where I think most people fall down is, and you hear it over and over again. If there were interviews with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and many others where the one word you always hear is focus. That's probably the most important thing as an entrepreneur. If you don't learn to focus, you're not going to succeed, because there are so many things, so many forces that are pulling on you as you're trying to develop your business, that if you don't maintain your focus, it's so easy to get sidetracked, whether it's shiny object syndrome and you're picking up something you think that's going to better your business, when in fact it doesn't do anything but distract you from your core mission. So one of the other practices that I learned early on was it was just kind of a mental mantra I would go through, and that is that everything I started to do, I would ask myself the question, is this going to move me closer to my mission, or is it going to take me away? And if the answer was that it was going to take me away, I didn't do it. It was always, okay, what do I have to do to get one step closer to achieving my mission? And those are the things that I did. And if the answer was anything other than that, I simply didn't do it.
And that's very powerful.
Yeah, and then I think the last thing is I had seen an interview with this, and sadly, I can't remember the man's name at this point, but he was a really well-known Japanese business executive. And he was interviewed, and one of the things that he commented on was that anytime that he was asked to do something, he would reflect on what the question was. And if he answered yes, that he could do it, he did it immediately. In other words, he didn't defer, he didn't wait, he acted on it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other thing that I've tried to implement is if I'm, if I'm asked to do something, or, I'm charged to do something for the business, when I'm asked, I try to act on it, straight away, because otherwise what ends up happening is there are so many forces that are
True.
pulling on you that oftentimes it kind of drops into a black hole and it doesn't get done. So
That is so true. And that's really
yeah,
powerful. And then the other thing is, most times if we don't act immediately, we tend to procrastinate afterwards.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really
And then I
awesome.
guess the last thing too is that, I've had to fight through something that I don't think a lot of people do. As I mentioned, I was disabled when I came out of the Marines. And I have a pretty serious issue with my skeletal system.
Right.
I have neuropathy in both legs. I've got frozen shoulders, neuropathy in both arms and hands. I live literally in constant pain
Oh.
24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on, medication for it. I go to therapy for it. I mean, it's pervasive in my life. And
Right.
so I've had to learn, um, ways to basically manage
Mm-hmm.
that pain
Right.
while I continued to execute on all the things that I needed to execute on. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that, in fact, I had a friend call me the other day, because I work all the time. I like to work. I mean, I have a passion for what I do, and I guess that's my other message
Mm-hmm.
to people listening is you need to have a passion for what you do,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't, it's just so easy to make excuses. It's just so easy to, take that other opportunity that comes along and
That's
to get
right.
distracted. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
really passionate about what you do, and to me, the trick as an entrepreneur, and it's not even really a trick. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just the fact. If you work in service to others, in other words, if you're always working in service to others, that will pay dividends tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, when somebody asks me for help, I always help. Um, and many times, over the years, many times I haven't even charged for, the services that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it because I wanted to see that person succeed,
That's
and
right.
it's paid dividends, and I think it will continue to pay dividends. So so my other message to people is, make sure that you're always working in service of others, because if you do, again, it will pay tremendous dividends to you in the long run.
You know, Deryck, what you've just said, it may sound simple, but it's really, really deep,
Hmm.
because it's amazing that you've learned to manage this challenge that you have with your disability and remain focused, like you've highlighted as one of your top secrets, and remain focused to achieve so many things that you've achieved. So now the
Hmm.
question to our viewers is, what's holding you back? What's your excuse? We've got to stop making excuses. And I
Hmm.
find that is so remarkable. And another thing that you mentioned is having that passion, being passionate about what we want to do, and doing things in service for others,
Right.
and doing things with a good heart,
Right.
and it comes back to you, maybe in a different way, but it definitely comes back to you.
Sure. It really does. I know that, one of the things that I frequently do is, when people have, especially right now, there's so many people that are having various challenges and so on, that they do online, and I always, as much as I can. I mean, my schedule is pretty crazy, but as much as I can, I participate in as many of those as I can, and
Yes,
I do it because one, of course, I want to see what people are doing. I want to see, what's working, what's not working,
that's right.
because if I'm going to help other people, I need to know what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And sometimes you learn that. In fact, many times, you learn that by doing.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you can pick up things that you've never done just by watching somebody else do it,
Sure,
and then
sure.
you know implement that. Certainly one of the big secrets that anybody that's successful will tell you, if you want to succeed at something, find somebody who's been successful at it and
Mm-hmm.
emulate what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And in this industry, of course, there's so many people. The mantra is find that person and get them as a coach, because if
That's right.
they've obviously succeeded at it.
The dream
So
coach.
hey, you know what? It's going to pay dividends if you
Mm-hmm.
get that person as a coach. So yeah,
That is great advice. I think that's one of the best advice that we entrepreneurs can get as well. And I
yeah.
would like you to touch also on how you dealt with failure, because you did mention in your past where one of the businesses you hit some losses. How did
Oh
you
yeah.
manage? How did you deal with failure? Because that's one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs face.
Yeah, that
They
wasn't
launch.
that actually, and that actually wasn't my first failure either. I mean, I
Right.
had my first failure went back when I first got out of the Marines. I started, in fact, a company I hadn't mentioned. It was a company called Syntec,
Mm-hmm.
and I brought in a partner. And of course, I'd never had a partnership before, and that led to, we ended up landing this huge contract. It was much bigger than either one of us could handle. It was a huge. It was a company called Todd Pipe and Supply, and we literally went in on a Friday, and we had to have the job done by Monday morning because they did over 1.5 million in sales a day. And so
Wow.
if we didn't have the job done, that's the amount of money they'd be losing. Um,
Right.
and so it was, he mentioned, well, I've got a friend that's, works for Hughes Aerospace that, he can come in and help us. And so we brought him in. And so, my partner was the operation side. He wasn't technical at all. So it was Larry and I doing all the work. And we literally worked from Friday, late afternoon, straight through the night, all the way through the weekend until Monday morning to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that big of a job. And unfortunately, right within probably about the last hour, we got the job done. Okay,
Right.
but that went on, and what happened was, over time they started kind of taking the company over. And of course, I had no knowledge of, coming into that, what I had got myself into in terms of partnership. So anyway, that whole thing kind of blew up. So that was kind of my really first failure. Uh, you know, the way I look at it is failure is not something to be afraid of. Failure is how you learn. I mean, it's the
Mm-hmm.
only way that you really learn.
Absolutely.
If you look at anybody that has been great throughout history, they have had multiple failures. I mean, you look at, for example, Lincoln. Lincoln failed every single time he ran for office, all the way up until he ran for president.
That's right.
So failure is not something to be afraid of. It's something that you learn from. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. They fear failure when
Mm-hmm.
they should embrace failure and learn from it and then apply it to the next thing that they do.
Mm-hmm.
I think people look at fear and failure. Unfortunately, I think they look at them in the same light, and I don't. I see them as two very different things. Fear is a bodily response
Mm-hmm.
designed to protect you from things.
That's right.
And so you use fear to help protect you, to act as an early warning that, hey, maybe you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, or hey, something needs to be changed. But that's
Mm-hmm.
different than failure.
Yes.
Failure is external, and it's something that you shouldn't fear and something that you should learn from. So
Yes, that's a great perspective of it. And really perspective is everything, because once we're able to adapt that perspective that failure is something to learn from,
mhm,
we will not fear it. Instead of fearing it, as you rightfully said, you embrace it. And what you're
right,
really embracing is your own development.
right, exactly.
That's
Yeah, I mean,
great.
it's again, I think what happens is that so many people, in fact, I saw this heavily in the corporate world, because in the corporate world, bad managers use failure as something that to control people with,
Mm-hmm.
because most people have a fear of failure,
That's
and
right.
so really bad managers know that, and they use that almost like a weapon.
Yes.
Whereas good managers understand that failure is a learning process,
Mm-hmm.
and so they help the employee work their way through that failure,
Mm-hmm.
and apply it to the next thing that they do, so that they constantly are helping their staff improve, which is really what their job is.
That's right.
So yeah.
That's right. You're absolutely right. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to
Sure.
touch on your leadership traits, because obviously you've run many businesses and now you've been an entrepreneur for quite a while now, and a successful one at that. What would you say are some of the chief leadership traits that are necessary for success in business for on any
Sure.
entrepreneur that may be watching or interview?
Sure. Well, certainly focus is the first one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's an absolutely must have. I would say the second thing is I've always tried to hire up, meaning that I don't want to hire people that are at the same level as I am, and I don't want to hire people that are at a lower level than I am. I
Right.
want to hire people that are better than I am,
Mm-hmm.
and
Absolutely.
then do everything I can to facilitate their work.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I do that, then the company is going to, I mean, that's one reason why On Demand grew so fast, is because I hired people that were really superior in many ways in terms of their skill sets. And that allowed us to grow very, very rapidly. So definitely it's kind of the mentality of hiring up.
Right.
I think another thing is, I've always believed in leadership by example, meaning that I don't ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do or I haven't done.
Mm-hmm.
And I also believe that in order to lead somebody, you need to do whatever it is that you're going to lead them through, so that you've had the experience and you've had the knowledge to be able to guide them.
Right.
So I think that's another trait. And I guess the last thing that I would say is in fact, I'll tell a little bit of a story. When I was with Spectra, we had moved from California to Dayton, Ohio, and I had built up a team there of 20 developers, and I had just purchased a software company that was based in London, and I purchased a software company that was based in Atlanta.
Right.
And the decision was we were going to move all of the software engineering assets to Atlanta, Georgia. So that was 20 people in Dayton. That was the group of people coming over from London, and then there was a team in Atlanta. I think they had about 20 there as well.
Right.
I had all 20 people from Dayton, Ohio, follow me to Atlanta. And at one point, I was asked, why did all 20 people go with you to Atlanta? Because most of them were born and raised in Dayton, Ohio.
Yes.
So why would they leave their friends and family and whatnot to go with you? And the
Sure.
explanation was really quite simple. At that time, anytime you drove by a construction site, everything that you saw that was yellow was spectrophysics equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I told the staff was, every time you're out driving around with your family, what I want you to do is I want you to point out to the construction field, and everything that you see that's yellow, I want you to tell them how you had a hand in building that and a hand in changing the construction industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that consistently. And so what I was doing was I was marrying together their work
And the
with
value.
the meaning behind what
Yes.
they were doing,
Behind it. Yeah.
and really giving some depth to the meaning behind their work. And so for them at that point, there was no way they weren't going to go to Atlanta, because they wanted to be a part of what we were doing. And we were literally at a stage where we were changing the construction, agricultural, mining businesses literally
Mm-hmm.
around the world. So, yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. And you help them to recognize the value in what they're doing and build that organizational citizenship behavior more or less, so they
Right.
develop that deep sense of appreciation for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they would blindly follow you anyway as a result.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
No,
another, Mhm.
it was a wonderful period of time.
Yes. Now, Derek, right now you did touch on it when you started the program. Right now you're doing something completely different, a brand new
I am.
venture to help lots of other digital marketers and entrepreneurs out there. I'd love you to tell us more about that.
Sure. Be thrilled to. So what I did is I got together a group of marketers that are at many different levels. I mean, there's a number of marketers that are on my team that are, what easily would be referred to as a newbie. And I've got people that are with us that are, have as much experience as I do. And what I've done is I've put together an organization where they all have a stake in ownership of the business. So there's a total of 12 people that are at that level. And so together we have worked for the past year building up this entity called Engage Technologies Business Consortium. And then, of course, everybody keeps asking me, what's a consortium? What's a consortium? Yeah. I say, okay, fine. It's an incubator for marketers. So meaning that anybody coming into the space that wants to learn affiliate marketing, wants to learn digital marketing, maybe wants to eventually develop their own marketing agency, or they want to become a marketing consultant. And anybody that's in the space that's already working, but has been working for maybe 1, 2, or 3 years and has just been beating their head against the wall and really struggling to achieve success. This is an open invitation to come join us, because what we're offering is a community of like-minded people. We're offering technology that we have tested and vetted and we know works. We're using it in our own businesses. We offer, again, a resource center that's got the physical resources that they need to build their websites, build their sales pages and so on, but also the human resources in terms of copywriters and graphic artists and so on. A technical support center, training center. It's pretty much a catch-all of everything that you need to ultimately succeed, including the community there to support you through your journey. And so we're going to be, we've got a lineup of coaches as well. So if somebody needs coaching, whether it's life coaching or business coaching, we've got that. And then, of course, every week we have sessions that we run so that people can get either free training, or they can get. We have free community meetings that we hold. So it's an opportunity really for folks to come in at a very low cost. Again, for the next 2 months, we're going to be charging an entry price, and it's grandfathered, so they'll have it for as long as they're a member, of $29 a month.
Right.
And then after 2 months, it'll go to $49. Some of the higher cost items, of course, is once you're in, we are committed to a marketing platform called Go High Level. Absolutely, I mean, I love this platform, and I love it. The reason I like this platform is because of the management team and the development team behind this platform. They are phenomenal. I've had occasions where I needed to get help. Literally, I had a meeting within a few hours, and I had help within an hour to solve my problem. So that's one of the major reasons why I like it. The other major reason I like it is because it's the first platform I found that brings everything finally into one place. And there's all your communications are in one communications hub, whether it's text messages, phone calls, doesn't matter. It all comes into one spot. So it's kind of an all-in-one package that they can continue to evolve. And the thing is, they keep growing the package and they never change the price. So you can't
Highly
beat that.
beneficial.
Right. So what happens is when they join, they get a trial membership in that platform. And what happens is they get initial 14-day trial. If they decide to stay on, we extend that trial to a full 30 days. And then at the end of 30 days, they need to make a decision. And the decision is, do they want to just keep a pro version of the platform? And that would be the case where they're just going to need it for their own business. They don't need it to, no, they're not trying to build a marketing agency.
Right.
That's perfectly fine. Or they can decide they want to upgrade and get an agency version. And so if they just keep the pro version, it's $150 a month. And if they go to the agency version, it's $300 a month or $297. But the thing that's amazing, again, about this platform is that you can be within 1 or 2 months, you can be in a position where that monthly fee is meaningless because they pay back 40% on every sale you make.
Wow.
So they're essentially their agencies are their sales force. So for example, today, monthly, I bring back in, I think my last check from them was like 600 and some odd dollars, where my monthly fee was 297.
Right.
So I no longer have out of pocket, and it just continues to
Just
build
pays
every
itself.
single, right, right. So that's the major, probably the biggest expense that they would have would be that platform. And then, of course, we have some other platforms that we recommend. For example, we have a platform for social media. We've got a platform for the marketplace that we run. We have a platform for funnel design and project management. And none of these, I mean, what we do is we introduce them, we teach them what they want to learn, and it's entirely up to the member if they feel that it will facilitate their specific business and what they're trying to do, then it's an option for them, but
Right.
certainly not a requirement.
And
Right.
what's your typical target audience?
Oh, the target audience is well, I'll put it this way. Every member, for example, I run an agency, and my agency is specifically for coaches. So
Right.
what I've done is I've built out a platform for coaches.
Okay.
And so that's my specific target. And what we teach everybody that comes in is that they need to niche down to build up. In other words, pick a specific niche, go small first, and then what you want to do is, as you go small, of course, you're securing customers,
That's
and the
right.
more customers you secure, most of your sales are going to come from existing customers, not from new customers.
That's right.
So, what I try to teach people is go small, get in the door, get that relationship established, because then they will buy more from you, and your sales will steadily increase over time, and eventually your business will grow rather nicely, as long as you kind of maintain that process. So.
That's right. That's right.
So
No.
so when people come in, they can take any niche. So there's no specific niche they have to take. We just want them to pick a specific niche when they get started, so that they have an opportunity to really succeed.
Right. That's great. And tell people about how they can connect with you to find out more about this program.
Very, very simple. Thank you for
Right.
asking that. So they can either go to etbc.online. That's Edward, Tom, Bob, Charlie, etbc.online. Or they can call, actually, the best thing to do would just be to write into sales@edbc.online. Either way, we'll be happy to take care of them.
That's wonderful. So you have it, folks, etbc.online. You can
Right.
you can connect with Deryck Jones there and find out more about the Engage Technology Business Consortium. And of course,
Right.
profit right now to join, because for the first 2 months, you get it at a lifetime fee of $29. Am I right? Yes?
That's right. You got
Right.
it.
Wonderful. I mean, Deryck, you've shared so much with us, and there are lots of valuable takeaways that you've left us with. But I want to ask you one last question.
Sure.
And, and my last question is this: what is your top millionaire advice to any entrepreneur watching this interview?
Oh, I'm going to come back to what I mentioned before. Focus. I can't stress it enough. To me, it's the number one reason why people fail. Fail to focus, fail to succeed. It's that simple.
Excellent. And that is deep advice. I mean, just today, for instance, I was preparing for a coaching call I had with someone. So I had to go onto LinkedIn to check out his profile, his website, do my gathering before that coaching call. And
Right.
it was a discovery call with a client. And as I got onto LinkedIn, there the message comes up. Somebody now pops me a message. Now, many persons, we get distracted and we go, okay, let's go looking at the message. And we get totally distracted and forgot what we were supposed to be focused on. So it's really a very important point that you've made. And it's something we have to try to do in our day-to-day business to ensure that we remain focused, avoid those distractions, and of course, know what we want to achieve, clear on our goals.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's a really simple thing to say, focus. It's a really hard thing to achieve, and it's hard to achieve for exactly the reasons you stated. I mean, for example, you've got email coming at you all day long, and if you don't have a methodology for dealing with your email, then you're constantly distracted, and
That's
a lot
right.
of times you constantly, you either miss something or you answer something that I mean, I had a time, many years ago where I got an email and I was in such a rush and I wasn't focused and I was in such a rush and I hit enter and I didn't realize I had copied everybody.
Right.
And it was not something that I wanted to copy everybody
Yeah.
on. So, focus is really, really important.
Yes. Thank you so much, Deryck. Thank you for sharing. Do you have a website or anything, last thing that you would like to share with our viewers?
Oh, sure. They can go to, again, either etbc.online, or if they'd
Mm-hmm.
like to know more about me, they can go to deryckj.com, DERYCKJ.com.
Yes. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure.
Melissa, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Good.